So I came across this article called How to Build a SaaS in a Week. And you might be thinking like, okay, but can you really do that? And yeah, you can. But this article kind of talks about some of the elements that I touch on in my Why I Choose Laravel video. That if you have the right tools that kind of give you everything out of the box, you can. The building a SaaS, the hardest part isn't actually building it. It's finding a great product. It's learning how to sell that product and then making it valuable to your users. And so I figured I'd take a look at this article and read it and share some insights and maybe some points as to why I think it hits the nail on the head. So let's dive into it. So, how to build a SaaS in a weekend. You might think the development of this software is the difficult part, but I'm here to put that in perspective. Using existing tools, we will build a fully functioning SaaS in a single weekend. Keep reading to learn how you can do that too. Sweet. Let's do it. Awesome. So, it only took a weekend. Great AI generated image. You might think the development of the software is the difficult part, but I'm here to put that in perspective. There are tons of templates and tools to automate a lot of the development of a standard SaaS, which allows you to skip or speed through a lot of steps and still deliver a quality product for your customers. Using existing tools will allow you time to focus on building out the business logic, the part that separates you from your competition, and iterate faster, testing new ideas, and getting to profitability much quicker. Last but not least, you'll have time to do marketing. This is the part that I think everyone wants to kind of dive into. In a SaaS, hey, I don't have to do marketing, right? And that's just not the case. Building a SaaS is not just learning the logic behind. Okay, how do I make this so that I can scale to millions of users and make it profitable and not have to worry about, support and all this kind of things? No, that's the easy part. The hard part is knowing exactly how to position so that your software, first of all, does it solve a problem? Second of all, how do you tell people about that, your solution to their problem? So, as a proof of concept, I built a fully functional SaaS in a single weekend, and in this article, I'm going to show you how. Feel free to copy everything you see here and create a SaaS of your own. Let's begin. I've done this as well, so I don't think it's not like it's not possible. Is it going to be a SaaS that is profitable? Probably not in a single weekend, but that's just the beginning, and I think that's what this article is touching on. Okay, what does it need? Let's address what we need to achieve in terms of product. Customers of your SaaS have certain expectations, and if you don't address some of them, you might not have a usable product. Here's where a typical SaaS needs to get started. Business logic, first and foremost, you need a feature to sell, whether it's API access and automation, report generation, fully fledged platform for agencies, or some other feature that provides value to your customer. Authentication, ability to sign up, log in, reset password, perhaps even two-factor authentication for extra security. Great part is I know that you don't really need this, but it just becomes so easy with Laravel and some other full stack frameworks that might as well. Billing, ability to enter payment details, charge money, and create and display invoices. Documentation, your customers need to know how to use your product. Even the most well-thought software needs a help center or API documentation for your customers to get unstuck and get the most value from your product. I would say this is probably like the least important one of all this, just because you can kind of build a great product that is intuitive to the majority of your users. And if you have product market fit, if you know who your users are, you can build kind of this documentation within the software itself. So yes, landing page. Customers need a place to give first impression, learn about your product before signing up, share this page across all of your marketing efforts later. Hosting. Finding your business needs to be available to the public. Once you're done building it locally, let's put it to the cloud. To the cloud. Let's do it. I think the above list is a great starting point for a SaaS and will be perfectly usable for your customers, and all of the above can be built or set up in a single weekend. Again, I think, that's accurate. The step is you're probably not going to have an idea that generates money and solves a problem built in a weekend, because that's the first step. You're going to have, an MVP that you can build in a weekend. I think that's what kind of this article is getting at. You can build the first step and then you start your journey. Okay, tech stack. In order to move fast, you need to use a framework. You also need to be knowledgeable and feel comfortable with it. If you want to iterate fast, that is not the time to try out a new framework or language. This is huge. This is why I touched on why I choose Laravel is, hey, if you know JavaScript, go for it. I learned, even after just a few times of using it in an application, that I was a lot faster in Laravel. There we go. Pick whatever works for you best, whether that's Laravel, Ruby on Rails, Django, Symfony, or some other framework that you're familiar with. In my case, I feel very comfortable with Laravel, which also happens to have dozens of helpful tools that save time and make building your SaaS much easier. For those reasons, I will be using Laravel in this article. Great. That's why I'm here to touch on it. Now let's move to the steps required to build a fully functional SaaS. Authentication. Many web frameworks these days have scaffolding for authentication out of the box. Laravel is no exception. Let's build the app skeleton with authentication. There are a plethora of other options available in Laravel scaffolding, including the type of front end or none you'd like to use, whether to include teams, functionality, dark mode, and more. You can view Laravel's available options for running this command, Laravel help new. And yeah, that's what I kind of touched on the video as well. Is like 9 out of 10 times I'm either using Laravel Breeze, which is just kind of standard out of the box authentication, or Laravel Jetstream, which includes most notably teams and like API tokens. There's a bunch of other stuff that comes with, like profile pictures, that kind of thing, but those are the two that you're kind of reaching for Jetstream for. Being familiar with the framework and the available tools. I know precisely the options I need for this project. Let's create our app. Laravel new, Jetstream with a stack of Livewire, dark mode, teams, my app. But we'll do the following. Yep, authentication, password resets, email templates for authentication related actions, two-factor authentication, including dark mode capability, including Teams capability. This is what sets Laravel, and I know that Rails, Django, everything, they have stuff like this, but this is what, within one command, we already have this out of the box, and then you don't have to worry about it. Awesome. Jetstream Starter Kit has a lot of account management features built in already. A single line configuration change later will also allow your users to update their profile photos or even create and manage API tokens. All of the above is generated in less than a minute. How neat is that? Business logic. Now that you have an app that users can log into, you might want to start on your business logic. After all, that is the most important part. The moat, the feature that your customers will pay for. Because of its importance, you should focus on that first. Get the hard parts out of the way, and you can then apply the finishing touches, billing, documentation, landing page later. In my case, I chose to build an IP geolocation API service, mostly because of how easy it was to implement it for this example. I've created a /API v1 IP and then brackets IP, which is the wildcard endpoint, which returns location data about a given IP address. So you input an IP here, and you presumably hit whatever API he's using to pull in that given data. Code for it's pretty simple. This is a controller specific for an API class. Looks like it's grabbing the IP that's put in. That's a request of or a string of IP, and then we're just getting the IP's info. And if not, we're aborting with a response. That was for example purposes only. Your own business logic will look different based on the feature you're working on. If you're wondering where I get my IP data, I use one of Maximind's downloadable databases. There are libraries for every language to efficiently read these databases and get the most basic information about an IP address. Create an account, download the database, and follow the documentation on how to integrate it with PHP or other language of your choice. This is a short segment of this article. This is the entire application itself, but I think the brevity of it kind of points to how you should be thinking about your SaaS. Like it's what the SaaS actually does is so minute, is so minuscule when it comes to just everything else about your application. The most important part is, how does it solve a problem? No one really cares about, okay, what are the actual technical implementations of what that problem or how that problem is being solved. They really just care about, okay, are you doing what I need it to do? And that could be one API call. It usually is a little bit more than that, but I think that's kind of the point, this article is getting at. Billing, after you have built the feature your customers will use. Yeah. So, if you want to build a SaaS in a weekend and you want to just try to get it out to as many people as possible, just choose one feature that they're going to pay for. Maybe for like this IP, IP data, someone would be willing to pay, $1 for getting IP information. Who knows? You'll begin thinking of how to charge for that feature and how much to charge. That is a complex topic outside of this article, and I will leave that up to you. Thank you. For this project, though, I chose to bill per IP lookup and to offer customers the ability to subscribe for a number of lookups per month, or to purchase a bundle of lookups that they can use any time that they want. Building a billing portal or any subscription logic from scratch is difficult and time-consuming, especially because every business's pricing structure is nuanced. Luckily, there are a few options to choose that help you set it up in a matter of hours or even minutes. Here's a couple of them. Laravel Spark. I use this in a couple of my applications, which is basically just billing specifically for Stripe and subscriptions. So it just kind of plops in as a billing portal where you can say, it's a paid service, but you can say, hey, I don't really want to manage the actual billing portion. I just want to know, is someone subscribed to any number of plans I've set up? And if they are, then I can just say they're subscribed. I can call that method in my front end. Or spike billing. I actually have not looked at this before, so let's see what this looks like. So credit-based billing for your Laravel application. Okay, so it looks like just like Laravel Spark, but specifically with credits and credit pack, which is, it's all the rage right now, especially with, any kind of AI billing is usually done within credits. People are used to seeing credit billing a little bit more now, where you kind of top off instead of having, month-to-month payment, but it looks like it offers both subscriptions and one-off purchases. So that's pretty cool. Both of the above options are paid, but they do a lot of heavy lifting and save you lots of valuable time, which makes them definitely worth the price. This is one thing that I think, especially indie developers are known for not doing well, is sometimes it's like, hey, if you could save 2-3 hours and spend $100 to save those 2 to 3 hours so that you can build faster applications down the line, it should be a no-brainer. It should be. Okay, because I'm building an API and I like to sell API credits, the second option, Spike, was the perfect choice because of its native credit support. Customers will be able to buy credits and consume them with API calls. It even contains a chart of credit usage. Let's set it up by following the instructions on Spike's installation page. After installing Spike, all we need to do is configure the price plans. Subscription and one-off products are both, and validate the setup with PHP Artisan Spike Verify. Okay, that's pretty cool. So it looks like it's really similar to Spark. You kind of just put in your Stripe product links, and it will create, those options for you in that billing page. And here's a fully featured billing portal that we end up with. Again, stuff like this is just cool to me, and I think definitely worth the price, because no one really cares about how this looks, or as long as it can be branded, similar to your application. It's just something that people are going to go to once, maybe, once a year, once of any time. They're not going to expect this to be something that is tightly integrated within your application. It's just the train, the vessel to get what they're looking for to solve their problem. Okay. Very neat. Yeah, I'll have to play around with this Spike billing. Great. Well, that was easy. Let's move to documenting your API. As an API, this is a must. Okay, and this is where I can see documentation being a little bit more higher up on the totem, because if you're building an API service, API application, customers need to understand how to consume your API and what results to expect. It's also good to know how much the API access costs as well. In our case, one request, one credit. Again, there are several great tools available to write beautiful documentation for your SaaS. I have not actually done any type of API documentation for any SaaS. I haven't necessarily built out API specific for a SaaS. They're kind of like an addition for those who need it, just kind of build an endpoint for someone if they request it. So this is something that I'm not too familiar with, but I know that, there are specific standards that people usually look for. You have V1, V2 for APIs. So you're not, there are standards in which you would expect certain API calls to be received. So you have readme.so, Swagger, that's the one I'm familiar with, Notion Pages, and then Scramble. For our example project, I've chosen Swagger purely because of its common and recognizable user interface, OpenAPI specification, and ability to embed it. And if I'm correct, I'm pretty sure you can there's probably like a Laravel package that you can generate OpenAPI documentation. Let's actually look for us. I think it's Laravel OpenAPI. Yeah, okay, here. This Laravel OpenAPI package would basically allow you to generate OpenAPI documents based off of your API resources. So yeah, makes that a whole bunch easier. Here's how to find the API usage, the parameters, expected responses, and so on, all in a simple YAML with their online editor. Okay, and again, you probably could do this then with like that Laravel OpenAPI package. Once you're done defining the API spec, you can export it as a JSON, which can be understood by their UI package. To display the OpenAPI spec, you can use Swagger's open source UI package. In our example project, I've embedded it as part of the app's layout, which makes it more cohesive and still gives customers the ability to navigate to other areas of the SaaS like so. Bam. Landing page. This is as close as we'll get to marketing in this article. I think, this is one that is also kind of like debatable. Is it important? I would say the majority of the time you probably should know if your users are wanting this before you even make a landing page. Maybe that's just sending them a Stripe link saying, hey, would you buy this? I know Ben Orenstein, the creator of Tuple, is popular for selling what he called vaporware. He didn't actually build Tuple or write a single line of code until he sold, I think it's something like $20,000 worth of that software, because he was talking to people and wanting to make sure, like, okay, hey, are you actually willing to buy the software? Or are you kind of just saying that you're wanting to buy it? And I think that's what, becomes really important when you kind of take a look at this is, are you building this because you know that people are willing to pay for it? Or are you building this with the assumption that, hey, this is solving my own niche and maybe someone else will pay for it? That's where a landing page can become more useful if it's the latter. Landing page is the first impression of your product. No doubt you will spend considerable amount of time iterating over your landing page, measuring and improving the conversion rates. Landing pages are ever evolving pieces of your app. Regardless, with a low budget of time, it only makes sense to use a template instead of building it from scratch. Designing the landing page from scratch can also be a huge waste of time. Not only will you spend lots of time that it could be better spent working on the features or marketing the product, but you also might not get it to convert as well as some of the pre-made templates or anything done by an expert. For this reason, you should look at some free or even paid, if you can afford it, landing page templates and just fill them in with your own information. Notable examples: Tailwind UI, Untitled UI, and Unbounce. And yeah, I think, it's always like key for me is you always need to make sure that whatever you're kind of placing on a landing page, one, represents your product well in terms of, does it show the product that you're, wanting to show. I actually have like a whole little micro course that I put together about landing pages and how they convert, what you're actually looking for. I think of it as, the front door to your application, in the sense that when you're building a landing page, you're not just saying, hey, this is the beautiful house that I've put together, and then as soon as you invite people in, it looks completely different. A front door should be representative of what your application looks like does, functions, and provides value for. So it should be noticeably different where like all of a sudden people are like, hey, this doesn't look anything like your landing page. That's one thing I would advise against using something like this, because it's so easy to make it super flashy where then it just doesn't represent what your application actually is and does. Because of our example project, uses Tailwind CSS, had a license for Tailwind UI. We'll use that. Okay, landing page examples, one you like most, change the text, logos. Perfect. Yeah, again, it's not as important at this point in time. Hosting. It's funny, I have a video coming out on the hosting tier list, basically, for any Laravel applications. Someone who came from the JavaScript world. Hosting was super easy. Point to your GitHub, host on Netlify, host on Vercel, you're good to go. Laravel is a little bit different. You basically have the ability to do serverless with something like Fly.io or Vapor within AWS or Flight Control, or you have standard servers, DigitalOcean Droplet with Forge or something like that. You need a place for your SaaS to live, to be accessible by everyone. No doubt your chosen framework has lots of options for hosting available, whether it's serverless, managed VPS, or self-managed VPS. I'm not smart enough for this one, so I would say don't do that. Aside, when thinking of hosting, it's easy to get hyped up and starry-eyed when we look at the different hosting offers, processing power, and features. You start thinking of the kind of power you might need in case your product is an overnight success. The reality is 99.9% of the time, it's not. There you go. Aaron Francis said it good. It's like, when do you need to be able to handle, millions of users? You don't. You need to be handled like the one or two that you might have. Most startups have a slow and predictable growth trajectory, which leaves you with plenty of time to upgrade your servers later if needed. At the same time, you shouldn't underestimate your framework's performance. A simple $5 VPS instance could easily serve millions of requests per month. Try to reduce your initial costs as much as possible until you have proven that there's a need for your product. Now back to our application. For Laravel, there are a few well-known offerings for hosting your Laravel application. Laravel Vapor, that's one that I host most of my projects on just because it's easy to scale up and scale down as needed. It's just hosted on AWS, but Laravel Vapor makes it easy where you don't have to do anything. You kind of just point it to your Laravel application and they handle things like queues, emails, everything. Laravel Forge, easy management of VPS, connect to your own DigitalOcean, AWS, Hetzner. I've heard of Hetzner. I know it's EU-based. Relatively cheap to start with and maintains, especially if you end up managing several servers. And then Ploy, I believe that's kind of like a Forge alternative, independent, fast-growing server management tool. It's great support for Laravel 2 and is cheapest of the whole. You could, of course, manage the VPS servers yourself, things like setting up a new server, installing dependencies, setting up Nginx, MySQL, Redis, setting up scheduled command, cron jobs, etc. Unless you have experience with all that, and even if you do, I do not recommend setting up the servers yourself. Use one of the above services that ship faster and with more confidence. That's key. It's like, you just want to make sure it works. Make it easy. Don't have to manage as much as you can. Again, this is one of the things that you shouldn't worry about when building your SaaS. Your biggest worry should be the product itself, the business logic, and the moat, marketing, sales. For this project, I tried out Ploy for the first time. I was very pleased. It's a great alternative to Laravel Forge if you're looking for a change of scene, although both are equally fitted in terms of functionality and reliability. Here's what I did. Ploy to create a new Hetzner server, all automated, didn't need to lift my finger, pointed the domain to the IP of the newly created server, created a new site in Ploy with a chosen domain, click deploy, site's now live, back to Ploy, add an SSL certificate and let's encrypt certificate, and let's launch the SaaS to the world. So you have an app that's now publicly accessible. What else do you need? Can you sell it already? Can you share it with the world? There's a couple of other small steps you should take first before you show it to the world. They don't take too long, so don't worry. Okay, generate a social preview image. I think, yes, that's important, especially now where people are sharing it on sites and, Discord, even things like iMessage, Slack. It's even more popular and more important now. It doesn't even need to be that big. It says, for a quick win, just take a screenshot of the landing page. And there's some tools within Laravel that actually make this happen too, where it will automatically grab a screenshot of the landing page and use that as an OG image. During the embed meta tags, check and update production environment variables. And just like that, the SaaS that you built in a weekend is now live and ready to take orders. Congratulations. Conclusion. As you can see, it doesn't take too much to build a software product that you can sell to others. It can even be put into step-by-step instructions. If it's so easy, why isn't every software developer rich already? I ask myself this question all the time. Because simply building the product is not enough. This article covers only the simplest basic building blocks of the software that have been automated because every business needs that. Ultimately, the success of your product will come down to features, the problem you're solving, how useful it is to your consumers because the market is overcrowded with geolocation APIs. You're saying that's probably a bad idea. Or marketing. Share your solution with the world. Help customers solve their problems with either yours or a different product. If no one finds out about your great product, then no one will buy it. That's key for products. That's key for content. That's key for everything. The point is, you can't just have a fantastic, solution to someone's problem. You also need to have an easy way to find people who have that problem and get your solution in front of them. That can be through social media, through Reddit, through Twitter, through Slack, through, Discord, or it can be through more, traditional outlets of, picking up the phone call or walking to different local businesses. The entry barrier for building software products has dropped dramatically over the last decade. So how do you set yourself apart? Learn marketing. Learn how to sell your product or team up with someone you knows. If you're looking to learn more about marketing your product, I suggest looking no further than Rob Walling and his podcast, Starbucks for the Rest of Us. Great podcast. Pick up his latest book. I'm not sponsored. I just really like it. And you'll have a good introduction to what to expect from running a software business. I recommend a lot of stuff. And I'm not sponsored. So yeah, hope you like this article. I'd really appreciate if you shared it with your friends. Sweet. So go ahead and share this with your friends. Marunas curious. But yeah, I think the point of this article is very much less of like, hey, you can build a SaaS in a weekend and scale it to millions. That's not really the point. The point is building the actual product itself, the billing, the authentication, the business logic, the deployment. That is so minuscule when it comes to the grand scheme of things of building a SaaS application. I'm going to kind of like have some videos and even some live streams of where I'm building a product from start to finish. But that's not the whole of the product. The product has been the months beforehand talking to customers and the months after talking to customers and putting it in front of them and demoing it and getting a whole ton of rejection and everything like that. Because the actual building part isn't the part that people are paying for. They're paying you to solve a problem for them and give them a solution. And building that's just a small part of it because they don't really care how it's built, what framework you're using. They just care that like, hey, you're giving them something they want. So go build it.